these days social media is big.
Oh.
Man, let's get on a side rant right
Let's
now.
break this down. Let's break down.
A little
social
pet
media. Let's
peeve
talk about this.
of a college coach. If you're gonna have social media and you want to use it, like you want college coaches to be able to find you.
All right, welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the track and field college recruiting process. I'm joined here by Ben Hibbert, head coach of University of New Orleans track and field and cross country program.
In cross country.
All right, so I wanted to break down the track and field college recruiting process because I'm getting emails, messages constantly about, hey, what do I need to do? How do I get recruited for college? I'm a junior, I'm a senior, I've got these marks, but I don't know where to figure out, hey, do my marks line up with a D1, D2, D3?
Right.
Should I go junior college? Are they going to reach out to me? Should I email them? And so I wanted to ask you about the process and just give me a high level of what goes on.
Yeah, so I think people have a misconception that recruiting happens the same way for everyone or is very black and white. Mm-hmm. Recruiting is not black and white at all. Recruiting is, in fact, extremely gray. I think, just recruiting as a whole it's each recruiting process is going to be different by person, but also by school based on what that program is looking for and what that coach is looking for. You might have you might be a really high level athlete, can get a scholarship or make a team anywhere you want to, but maybe that program or that coach isn't looking for your event group or your marks or just there's so many variables that go into it. So I think there's just a big misconception around recruiting in all I got to do is this and then everything else happens after that. And it's simply not that way. There's a lot of things that go into recruiting from a coach's standpoint and from a program standpoint. I think every program is built a little differently and that's going to be based on what the head coach or the specific event coach wants. So I think just looking at recruiting as a whole, you have to be very flexible. And I think the stigma around it needs to change a little bit just because I don't think it's as black and white as everyone thinks it is.
Okay. Say we have a high school athlete who's a junior.
Right.
Okay? What's their plan? Is it junior year, hit good marks in high school, and then start reaching out? Do they wait till their senior year? And how would a college coach reach out to them? Would they send a email?
Right.
What's that process look like?
I think that depends more on the level of athlete you are. If you're top 10 in the event in the country as a junior, you're probably going to have schools reach out to you. You really don't have to worry about that because the big schools are going to come calling. I think if you're one of those athletes like I was, a little bit more middle of the pack, in high school as a junior, I was winning some races, I was running decent times, but I wasn't blowing it out of the water.
Yeah.
I was a California kid, so I think I made the state meet as a junior, but I bet I finished high teens, 18th, 19th, something like that. Just really not anyone that's going to catch any attention. So I think as a junior, your best play is to kind of try and put yourself on the map like that. Make your state meet, start to lay down some respectable marks. But then, I wouldn't, especially if you were middle of the pack like I was, I wouldn't expect coaches to come calling you a ton.
Yeah.
I didn't really have that. I had a few, but I knew I wanted to, or I had it in my mind that I wanted to go Division I, even if that was a mid-major, and I knew if I was going to get there, I had to do the work. So I think for a junior, your best plan is get through your season, right? Unless you're in that top 10 in the country, top 20 in the country, get through your season, lay down some marks that say, hey, look, I can contribute at a higher level, I have potential. I think that's a big word for it is potential. I have potential in these events, this is what I did as a junior, think about what I could do as a senior, and then think about what I could do at this program under this training.
Where are they finding those top marks? Athletic.net, mile split?
I'm an athletic.net guy just because that was the West Coast. I'm learning now that I'm in Louisiana that mile split is pretty accurate and pretty reliable. That's usually where I go to now. But kind of gauging yourself as to where you're at there, and then solid junior season. I'd say the summer between junior and senior year is a good time to send emails. Coaches are NCAA coaches are heavy in the recruiting during the summer. Once our meets end, it's like we don't just lay down and go to sleep for the summer. You know, like we're full on. It's recruiting season, and yes, we're trying to grab people at the end of the summer for like that following year, but we're also looking at the next year at the juniors who are about to become seniors and see whose ear we need to get into. So I think that period is a really good time to start sending emails. In that period, I think a lot of NCAA coaches like myself, I'm reaching out to kids who have just finished their senior year. I'm not yet looking to reach out to juniors who are coming into senior year, which is going to be different by program. That's just my style. So in my mind, like, it helps me a lot if those juniors coming into their senior year reach out to me and put themselves on my radar, just to establish initial contact.
So it's really good if you're, say you're not even considering athletics. In my mind, you should be going out, and if you like a college or program, you're going to apply to that school based on your academics, based on your own merits, and then whether you get to the point where you can get into that college and start that conversation with the coach, you should already be applying to this process, because if you're like I was a late bloomer. Like, I was 4'11" my freshman year, right? And I was 5'11" by the time I graduated, and now I'm over 6'1", right? So I wasn't the best of athlete at my junior.
Right.
And so I wasn't until I kind of peaked later in life, right? And so my junior year, there was no hope for me sending out a message, right? So I was already going through that process of sending out messages, or of applying to different colleges. And then when I finally hit those marks, district and state championship, all of a sudden I started getting a little bit of marks to give me consideration. Like, that's already late in the process. And so for a college coach, if someone's a late bloomer and they don't hit till their like state meet, right, which is pretty much the end of the year, if they don't hit any measure that would be considerable, is it too late, or is there still a chance they can?
I would never say it's too late, because I will go out and I'll recruit people during the summer. We have a kid on the team right now. I signed him. He was a freshman this fall. In August, I signed him like at the end of July.
Wow.
So I don't think it's too late. I think what you said about sending the email like, hey, I've applied, I've been accepted, that's like a big green flag for me when I get emails. Like, I'll get a million emails of kids saying, hey, I'm interested, I think it could be a great fit. But like, when I get that email, like, you're just like every other email I read, But when I get an email that says, hey, I've applied, I'm interested, now I know, like, okay, this kid has given a legit thought to UNO, like, they're completely serious about it, like, that kid's worth my time, So just like grabbing that out of there, like, that's a big green flag for me, is, hey, I've applied, I'm interested. Anytime I can tell that the kid has done specific research as opposed to just put me on an email list is a big thing for me. But no, I don't think it's too late. Like, you got to get a little lucky, I think, once it gets into July. But people are always looking. People are always trying to add people to the rosters.
So it's not just even like high school. They could still be doing summer track like AAU, USATF, and all of a sudden hit something crazy.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely, yeah. Coaches are always watching. I promise you that.
They're always looking, huh?
They're always watching those AAU meets and stuff during the summer. There are college coaches in the stand.
So how does like an athlete find what college standard is? Like, say you're a long jumper, if they jump 21 feet versus an athlete who hits 23 feet, where is that going to fit? Is that a D1? Is that a major, a smaller D1? Is that a D2? How can they find where they might fit in balance?
So I think I would say the best way to figure that out is probably to look at the conference meets of this is just the way my mind works. Look at the conference results of the college meets. So,
like on TFRRS?
Yeah, TFRRS or something like that. Like
TFRRS.
You'll live there in college, so get used to it now. College coaches, at least when I do my recruiting, I base everything off of what is going to score in conference, what is going to score at the national meet. So being like pretty honest and blunt, right? Like, a 21-foot long jumper isn't going to do a lot for a high-level Division I school. Might not be the best for a mid-major Division I school, but maybe at a Division II school or a Division III school, like then you're cooking, you know, like that probably lines up closer with those standards. So I think the easiest way to find the standard is to look at the conference, TFRRS. But you can also go on a lot of schools' websites, and they'll have recruiting marks. I say be a little careful with that, because a lot of those recruiting standards get put up there and then don't get thought of a lot. I think a lot of coaches, when they get emails, they kind of know the marks they're looking for regardless of what that sheet says. So you might meet the walk-on standard, but the coach might not email you back because, you know, they're not looking for a 21-foot long jumper, even though their walk-on standard is 20'5".
Yeah, and I've heard it the opposite way, where they'll have these kind of higher standards.
Absolutely.
Because they're saying, hey, I want to get the best athlete, you want to get the best talent, so you can get potentially higher athletes only applying, when in reality, you know, this is what it says, but it might be actually, it might actually be down there. So don't be discouraged if, you know, if it says 24 feet long jump, or, you know, 10 whatever 100-meter dash, and you actually get an email even though you haven't hit it, right? So don't be discouraged. Shoot your shot. Always shoot your shot. So, like, to kind of summarize so far, the recruitment process is first get those marks. Once you have those marks, start looking on different college websites to see, hey, do they already have something posted? If not, go on TFRRS, check out their conference results, look at the team, look at the past year. Would it help if they kind of can see, like, individual athletes' profiles and see, hey, in high school, that athlete jumped this, and then now in college they're jumping that?
Yeah,
Is that another way to?
I would say so. I think, especially in the first year or so of college, a lot of athletes don't necessarily perform better than they did the senior year of high school. That first year of college, there's so many adjustments that, like, you know, you might have a 24-foot guy out of high school who is struggling to hit 22.5 in college, just because there's so many adjustments going on. You know, so their early college marks might not always reflect, like, what they were recruited at or what they were recruited for. But I still think it's good, yes, to look at, you know, what this athlete was like as a high schooler, what their profile kind of looked like, and that gives you just a better holistic idea of what was going on there.
So, as far as, like, the way they can make contact, so I know if they go to, like, the Adidas Nationals or Nike Nationals, then if you're scoring at some of those big meets, right, you're more likely to get contacted by college coaches, which would probably be a college coach reaching out to the high school coach, right? Most likely, and then getting that contact.
That, or these days, social media is big.
Oh.
Man, let's get on a side rant right now.
Let's break this down. Let's break down
a little
social media. Let's talk about this.
Of a college coach, if you're gonna have social media and you want to use it, like you want college coaches to be able to find you, make it your name. Don't put your nickname as your profile name.
Don't be Jumpers Junction if that's or Jumpers University if that's who you are. Make it your actual individual personal
it's
profile.
Like, if I'm at a meet and I watch a kid run and I'm impressed, or I watch a kid jump and I'm impressed, and I look their name up on the heat sheet, which is usually I carry the heat sheet with me when I'm recruiting, that's the name I'm going to type into Instagram. Like, I'm going to type it exactly as it says.
This is gold right here.
I'm going to type it into Instagram, and, like, if I have to dig deeply to find it, I'm going to be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But if you're, like, the first or second result that pops up because your name is your name, easy. And then I figure out a lot about you really quick.
Which is another point. If you're on Instagram and you're underage and you've got pictures and stuff on you, underage drinking, that's a huge red flag, right?
We're gonna pass.
So you gotta make sure you've curated your profile to
absolutely
not only be good, but also a good representation of you, right? Because we're looking for an individual, a person first, then an athlete. And so, you know, if you're someone who's not going to fit the program, you know, you're not going to fit the program.
Automatic pass.
So another way, there's a lot of questions I get about some of these websites where they're like recruiting websites, like Recruit and a couple others, where they'll post standards on there and they've got algorithms that pull random statistics on there. How accurate are things like that? Or
I don't mess too much with that stuff. I get a lot of emails from those places reaching out to me. So if you're using that service, like, you can be confident that, like, they are getting your information out there. I just don't, like, I don't interact with it too much myself. You know, like, I'm more likely to respond to a kid who emails me directly, like, here's my marks, here's my GPA, all that stuff, than one coming from a service, because, like, from the service, like, feeling that buffer in there, it feels a little different.
There's a middleman.
Yeah.
It's not as personal.
Yeah.
And you want to make a personal connection.
Exactly. But I think those services can really help you figure out kind of what level you fall at, and like what would be good schools to reach out to, because like you said, like, they bring a lot of algorithms and stuff in. I think there's some good data pulled into it that really helps people figure out maybe where you do have a chance of getting a scholarship, or where you do have a chance of getting a roster spot. So definitely beneficial in that way.
All right, so then I guess the big answer is email.
Yes.
Email, right?
Yes. Email
or
is
social
definitely
media,
easier.
but email, right?
Yeah.
So an athlete should send an email to college coach. First off, where can they find a college coach's email?
You should go to the school, the athletic website. So you can search University of New Orleans track and field, and our website will pop up. You can go to roster, you can go to coaches, and our emails will be listed under us there.
Boom. Okay, so now they got your email. So now they're going to send an email to you. What do they say?
You should tell me, so like, subject line is a big one, right?
Okay.
In the subject line, I would like to know what class you're in, what your GPA is, and probably the mark from your best event. So if you're class of 24, 3.5 GPA, I'm a 22'5" long jumper. Because that tells me, like, right from the jump, like, should I open this email? Like,
should their first word be like recruiting or something like that?
I don't really think, like, I think if I see that stuff in the subject line, I know what it is.
Okay.
You know, or, you know, a lot of people will put potential recruit, class of 24 recruit, stuff like that, which isn't bad at all. I'm just a person who I'm simple and concise and to the point. So I appreciate that when I see it.
And you got to remember, like, college coaches get a lot of emails, right? So if you have a subject line that says something very generic or that doesn't really think out, I mean, it might just get passed up, right? So you might be the athlete that he is looking for. But if he doesn't click on it, or if he does click it but it doesn't right away resonate with him, I mean, you're going to get lost. So sometimes the answer could be send another email, right? You don't have, if you shoot one email and you don't get a response, wait a little bit, and it's okay to send a second email. And I definitely wouldn't respond with like, hey, you know, you didn't see my email, here's the second one. Just send it like it's a first email again.
I agree.
So what to include in the actual email. So I wrote down a little list of things. And tell me how much these are good or no-nos.
All right.
So your info, so your contact info, what events you do, what your times or marks are in those events, what school you go to or state you live in, right? Which is huge. In-state or out-of-state tuition, that's automatically going to be factored in, especially if you're looking for scholarship.
You'd be amazed at how many people will send me an email. I have no idea what school they go to. I have no idea what state they live in.
What grade they are.
Yeah, no idea what grade. It's just a name and maybe an event and maybe a mark, and that's it.
What about weight and height? If someone's like,
I think if it works in your favor,
Yeah.
if you're a
potential decathlete.
Yeah, if you're a 6'3" dude who wants to be interested in the decathlete, I see like 6'3", I'm like, oh, he's got some size, like he's got some length, like
Got that potential.
yeah, advantageous
So
for sure.
if it's good for you,
if
include that
it
kind
works,
of stuff.
if it's advantageous, if it works in your favor, include it for sure.
Okay. Times and marks. What about academics? What should they include as far as academics?
I always want to know someone's GPA.
GPA, test marks.
Yeah. GPA, test scores, ACT, SAT if you've taken it. That stuff is important, like for sure. Like if you don't include it in the email, but you manage to get me on the phone, that's going to be one of the first two questions I ask you is like, what do the grades look like, you know? Because that's important. Like I can do a lot to, you know, get you a spot on the team and get you a spot in the program, but I can't always do a lot to get you into school. Obviously we have some places we can help and kind of push it along, but if you hit me with a 2.2 GPA, academics is going to tell me no.
I'm going to come back to that. I actually
Absolutely.
have a bullet point on that.
I figured we might circle
I have
back
a
to
bullet
that one.
point on how
We'll
you could potentially get assistance into the school
Yeah.
through athletics.
Yeah.
But okay, so also what about like if they already like know a major they want, or if they have, should they include that first email, or should that be a later on thing?
It can be either. I
Okay.
think if you can keep it
short, yeah.
Yeah, if you can keep it concise and include it, like, I am class of 2024, interested in studying chemistry. I think it's good because almost all coaches will know what kinds of programs are at their school and if it's a good program or not. And if I see you want to study chemistry and I know we have a good chemistry program, I'm going to be like,
That's a good fit.
yeah, that's a good fit. It's something I can use to encourage them or put them in a better situation.
What about coaches' info? Their coaches' info?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely, because a lot of, even though I might have, I'm a person who likes to have the initial contact with the kid. If that initial contact goes really well and I really enjoyed the conversation and I'm encouraged by this person, I'm going to call the coach next, because the high school coach is going to know you as an athlete better than almost anyone else will.
Yeah.
So definitely put the coach's name in there, coach's
email or phone number,
yeah. and give us some way to contact them, because that is a resource we care about.
Should they include their social media if it's advantageous?
Yes, you should.
Yeah.
You definitely should drop a handle in there or something.
Recruiting
like
has changed a lot. Now that social media is there, if you have it, put it out there.
Definitely, it's like said.
If you do and you're hiding it, like,
you got some other stuff.
We're clearly pretty young, right? And a lot of college coaches now are younger coaches who have gone through all this. We can find it, right? It's really easy.
There's a lot of ways
easy
to figure it out, but I would agree that email, personal preference, email, social media is a very close second. Like, I will almost always look up a kid on social media. Even if they shoot me an email and I read their name, I'm gonna look them up on social media. Yeah. I would say there are very, very, very few that I don't try to find the social media of.
Yeah. Last thing, should they send out a mass email to all coaches through one email, or should they make it personal about that school?
You should make it personal. Easiest question we've had yet.
Easy question.
When I get an email that says, all this is my info, this is what I run, hope to hear from you soon, coach, and at the bottom it says unsubscribe from this mailing list, I delete the email. I delete the email and everything I just read, because that's like, I can respect someone trying to reach out, right? Trying to get their name out there and their stats and stuff, but that just tells me, like, you haven't done any interest in my school, like, or any research on my school. Like, you probably really haven't looked into the program a whole lot. You're just trying to go somewhere. Yeah, you're just trying to
anywhere. Shoot your shot.
Yeah. Throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. So definitely a personalized email. Like I said, like if you've looked at a program and you really like a program they have to study, that's a big plus. Any way you can make it personalized to tell the coach, hey, this is more than just you're a name on a list. It's like, I have some interest in your school and this is why I think it fits. Is definitely a positive.
Okay, that's awesome. We're rolling through these. This is gold right here. Okay, so another thing I wanted to and we can real quickly brush over this, but so if you're interested in college, right, a collegiate athlete, it's not necessarily just Division I or NCAA even. There's multiple different routes you could take. So in the NCAA, you have D1, D2, D3, and the differences between those are kind of different levels and tiers, but also D1, you've got a certain amount of number of scholarships, right? D2 is the same thing. D3, there are no scholarships.
No athletic scholarships.
No athletic scholarships, but there are academic scholarships.
Yes.
And then you have not NCAA, but you've got NAIA, which is kind of like a separate league, which does have scholarships. And then you've got junior college, which has the Junior College Athletic Association, which can also give scholarships. And these could be partial, full. But I wanted to ask the question, like, so people always say, like, oh, I got a full scholarship. And y'all have a certain amount of full scholarships to give out, right?
Correct.
But y'all can break up a full scholarship into 2 partials, can't you?
Right.
So there's a certain amount of scholarships that y'all have to give out. so say you have like 9 scholarships or 8 scholarships, whatever it is. And, you know, if someone's reaching out and they want to be, if they're really talented and you're like, hey, I really want to get them here, what are the different options? There's full scholarship. What does a partial scholarship mean?
So in track and field, you can break a scholarship up any way you want them to. Any way you want to. I could give someone $5 if I wanted to. Administration is going to look at me sideways like, what are we doing? But you can break up there's no minimum. The only maximum is full, right? Yeah. So that can really play to people's advantages or disadvantages, depending on how you want to look at it. But besides the point, you can break a college coach in track and field can break up a scholarship into as many pieces as you want, any way you want.
It can cover tuition. It can cover tuition and room, room and board.
It
also
can cover
fees,
books. It can cover books.
All kinds of stuff.
Anything like that. Yeah.
Stipends, all kinds of stuff.
You can break it up any way you want.
So if, say you get a chance to go to a school and you don't have the full scholarship, I mean, you could still get a chunk, right?
Big chunk.
And so that chunk might not include everything, but it's still,
I think
that's the bulk
the
of
most.
it.
I used to have a paper. The most important or the most costly thing here is room and board. Like, and so like it's not just, tuition. It's not just books or whatever. Like room and board is the biggest chunk of cost. So being able to split up a scholarship any way you can is going to benefit you.
Yeah. And then there's two other like big areas around that recruiting that I wanted to talk about. So one is international students. Right. So we get a lot of questions from international students. Say, hey, I'm in Qatar. Hey, I'm in, China. I'm in wherever, right? And they want to run here in the United States in the NCAA program. I think a cool thing is if you look at the NCAA program, you'll see at the championships, maybe the athlete who won or got second or third is then running for the Bahamas in the Olympics. So it's kind of cool because the NCAA is now kind of like the global
100%
training ground.
100%.
So there's a lot of international athletes competing in the United States collegiate system. Yeah. So what's that process look like?
So once again, different for every school, depending on if you use a service, if not. We use a service called ScholarBook. That's a plug because ScholarBook's a great service. But basically, ScholarBook brings international athletes to us and says, hey, this athlete is looking for a place to run in the United States. Here are their marks. If they have a budget, here's the budget. Or if they need a full, here's that info. And basically, it goes like that. Now, once you have a service like that, or if you're doing it on your own, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. You have to take, most countries will have to take an English proficiency test, TOEFL, Duolingo, something like that. A lot of schools will require that. We do. I think our test minimum for a Duolingo is 100, which isn't terribly hard to hit for most people, but can be a challenge. You'll have to prove like math and English proficiency in one way or another. You can take the SAT. You can also, like our school has an AccuPlacer test where like if you don't have math scores but you have English scores via TOEFL or whatever, we can put you in a math AccuPlacer test and that'll tell us like, do you meet the standard? What class can we put you in? Stuff like that. So there's some testing requirements there. What else am I forgetting? Obviously, you have to be able to get into the school. So you'll take transcripts from wherever you are in the world. And then oftentimes they have to translate or change them into English so that we can calculate like a GPA off of it. And then get those sent over to us to actually get into school. So those are kind of like the main ones. There's got to be a couple more that I'm forgetting, a couple steps. I have a spreadsheet for it. But there's a few of those hoops to jump through where if you have a service that's helping you, a lot of the times the service will guide you through all that. It's more than possible to do it on your own. It just takes a lot more digging and a lot more work. But yeah, there's some hoops you have to jump through there. Once all of that is completed, once you've been accepted into school, you'll get an I-20. Your I-20 is then what you take to get your visa. Basically, you set a visa appointment with your embassy. You'll take the I-20 with you, prove that you're coming to the States to go to school. They will accept it 9 times out of 10. And then after that, you're pretty much on your way. But yes, behind the scenes, there's a lot more hoops for an international to jump through. But once again, I really recommend grabbing a scholarship service, because they know the process. Most people who run those services were collegiate athletes themselves, so know what that experience is like, and can usually get you in a pretty good spot.
That's gold, man.
Hopefully that wasn't too much, and it wasn't all like
that's
precise.
That's awesome. So
yeah.
go check out one of these services, right? It's going to help assist the process. Yeah. All right, there's another hot topic that's really popular right now. It wasn't around when I was in college, the transfer portal. You okay to talk about the transfer portal?
Let's talk about it.
Okay, so what's going on with the transfer portal?
The transfer portal seems to change every day, at least week by week. There's a lot of movement. I think people are starting to use it and think about it a lot more. Recruiting in the transfer portal is becoming a lot more popular.
What is the transfer portal, real quick?
So the transfer portal is it's something where if you're an athlete already in college, and say you're at UNO, for whatever reason you're not happy, you want to be a grad transfer, need to change programs, whatever, and you want to leave UNO, you can get in the transfer portal. And the transfer portal shows the rest of the coaches in the country that, hey, I'm looking for somewhere else to go. For whatever reason, I think my time here has come to an end, or I'd like to explore other options. You can go to your current collegiate athlete can go to their compliance. They can ask to be put in the transfer portal, and then once your name is in there, every coach in the country can see that you're up for grabs. You're looking for a new spot.
It's like becoming a free agent, right?
Perfect.
It's a free agent, right? All of a sudden everybody knows you're a free agent. So then coaches can then come look and pick you up and pull you on the team.
And when you're in there, like, even though I'm a Division I coach, I see everyone from every level that's in the transfer portal. So I see D2, D3, I see NAIA, I see everyone in there.
It's crazy that this exists.
It is crazy.
It didn't exist when I was around.
Yeah.
But some common reasons that people would transfer, say you have some kind of health issue or some issue and you have to move back. Say you're from Texas and you've been up in Alaska and you have to move back close to home for whatever reason, like now that's an option, right? Or say you're a graduate student, you graduate from university, and
finish your degree.
You finish your degree, and then you're going to go, do your master's or PhD at another school, and you still have eligibility left.
Yeah.
Well, then that's now an option.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think it gives great flexibility to people in those kinds of situations. Especially I'm always in favor of a grad student because they've finished their degree, they've completed their commitment. But they have an extra year of eligibility, and they're going to continue schooling. Well, go experience a new team somewhere else. I do think it can be used in negative ways sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's not all worth getting into.
Yeah. But it does give that flexibility just in case that is an option.
It does.
All right. So I've written down a few points or things to consider, just like off the top of my head, because as a coach, as also a former athlete, I've seen a lot, you've seen a lot, and so now it's like advice time. All right, so we've moved away from like the big picture, and now we're going to go into the nitty gritty of just some things to consider and some points.
Yep.
So I want to talk about like the athlete to coach and school bond. So when you're coming out of high school, and say you went to a private school in a town of 100 people, and you're real isolated, local, and all of a sudden, say you're just an amazing athlete, and you get a scholarship out to some major giant school that has 50,000 students, and you've got the amenities like you've never seen before.
Yeah.
It's a big culture shock, and I know this from experience. So all of a sudden you're in a big culture shock. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. You have to have some of these things thought about before you get to the school. So think about some things to think about, right? Are one, who's the coach? Two, what school is it? What's the academics at that school, right? Because you're going to end, track and field's going to end for 90% of the people.
98%.
98%, you're not going to go pro.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about track and field is once you graduate, you can still run unattached and run as a master's athlete for the rest of your life, right? I'm coaching someone right now who's 79 years old. 79 years old, still out there doing high jump, long jump, sprints, hurdles. So it's something you can do for the rest of your life, but you're not necessarily probably going to go pro. So what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Well, you're going to get an education. It's going to prepare you with the life skills. It's going to prepare you with all the things that college degrees can prepare you with and set you on to the next path. So you think about the college, where are you going to be? Where's it going to be located, right? So if you're from Texas,
proximity to home,
and you're thinking about going to, say, Michigan, well, Texas is hot. What's Michigan?
Michigan is cold.
Michigan's cold, right? Do you work well in the cold? Are you going to be comfortable being indoors all day, all year round, right? Another thing to think about, like, so I went to Alaska, and I didn't realize like vitamin D deficiencies. Then you start getting depressed. Like there's all these things if you're just there's no sunlight in the winter, right? Also, think about this. If you're in school and towards the end of the school you meet someone, a boy or girl that you get married to, and you get a job there in Michigan, now you're away from your family, right? Then you're gonna have kids. I know this from experience. You start having kids, then you don't have family there. Well,
to help you out.
Then you don't have anyone to help you out. You don't have that. You can't go out and leave your kids at your parents' house overnight. You're always on duty.
Right.
There's a lot of things like kind of to think about for moving forward. So, if you're going to go to a faraway school, are you going to be able to do a college visit? How important are college visits?
I think visits are good. I think they really give you a sense of like what's going on there. It gives you a sense of what the campus feels like. Hopefully you can get with the team or the group depending on what day it is, and kind of get at least a little bit of a feeling of what the group is like. You can also see the coach work in person, which I think is a good thing. So I am always in favor of visits. I think sometimes it's difficult, like if you're looking at one of those faraway schools, like you probably got to be reasonably high on that school's list for them to pay for a flight across the country. But if you're willing to pay for your own flight to get you there, you should state that, and then the visit's going to roll. Like I don't know a lot of people who would turn that down. So I think if you're able to take visits, you absolutely should. It gives you on-site knowledge. It helps you figure out a little more of what's going on there.
Yeah, I think, and also like seeing, it also can tell you if, say you're a long jumper. I keep using long jump as a reference here.
The go-to.
Yeah, it's the go-to, right? Let's say you're a long jumper and you go visit the school and you do, say you've gone on, you've seen, hey, I'm a 24-foot long jumper. I meet their standards for a scholarship. You go visit and they've got 6 long jumpers all jumping 25 feet. Right? And they're all freshmen. They still have, by the time you would get there, you're kind of under, right? And so if you go to, if you're at, and you've got a long list of athletes all in the same event, not all of them are going to go to Texas Relays, right? Not all of them are going to go to these big meets. They're going to kind of, especially at some of these D1 schools, you're going to maybe split it up based on where you're going. So it's kind of like almost being like if you think of football reference, a roster spot versus like a bench on the bench, right?
Definitely.
Not to say that you can't get there, right? Because a lot of times people have amazing progressions, but just think they might actually, you might do that college visit. They've got all these athletes, and even though you're reaching that potential, you're reaching that mark, maybe they don't need you, or they just don't want to. They've already got a good group there. The athletes bond well with coaches, and they're like, why mess this up for someone new that's untested? We don't know how he's going to fit in. All that. So you definitely want to check who's on the roster, who's going to continue to be on the roster, and then will you fit in with those athletes, right? Because usually if an athlete comes in for a site visit, you're going to have some athletes just kind of show them around, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you start butting heads with the people who you're going to be training
Your
with,
host right away.
yeah, right away,
It's probably not going to work out.
probably not going to work out. And especially it's the coach to athlete bond is so important. Okay, athlete and coach must be a good fit. Here's the note I wrote down. So big thing for me when I'm looking at different athletes is, one, their kind of mental state and their mindset, right? So are they going to be adaptable and flexible and handle stress? Because I don't want an athlete who's super, super talented and practices, I'm going back to long jump here, say they're jumping 26 feet, 8 meters, they're almost hitting Olympic standard in practices, and then they can't handle the stress of a meet. Yeah. They get to the meet, they get to conference, and then all of a sudden they get stressed because they haven't learned how to deal with those stresses, and they're jumping 20 feet. That's a pretty extreme example, but
that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, right? So these are things that you can work on. There's all these different methods and techniques, but I don't, once you get to the college level, college coaches have a lot to deal with, and so, you're hopefully getting developed. By the time you're getting to college, it's more of like a polishing, right? So we're no longer molding the clay. It's more of now just like putting the fine touches on. And so if an athlete is more mentally developed, even though if they might not be as physically developed, that's a huge bonus, right? Definitely. Flexibility, adaptability. For me, another one is motivation and like the drive or the hunger. So this to me is this is one of the most important things that I look at for athletes is, are they hungry? Based on my story, right? It took me a very long process to get where eventually I got to, but I was so hyper focused and passionate and driven about becoming the best I could, becoming my own coach. Yeah. And so I was going out reading papers, I was going out and watching YouTube videos, I was going out and doing all this extracurricular work to hone in my skill. I wasn't just sitting there waiting for a coach to give me information and then I do it and then I'm done, right? I was hungry. I wanted more than anything, right? Yeah. If I see an athlete come in who is, they are the most driven, passionate, focused, they're just like, this is it, this is all I want to do, and they're slightly below someone who's a little bit more technical, a little bit more talented, but I know there's kind of going to be a ceiling there because maybe they've got some behavioral issues or something. This athlete is way more likely to get considered for me because I think their potential is a lot higher than someone who's maybe more focused. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I would agree. I think motivation is a big one. If I get a call on you or get on a call with you and I'm like, why? Like, what are you looking for? Like, what's important in a school? And your first answer is like, well, whoever can pay me the most money. It kind of tells me like, all right, maybe this kid isn't super interested in the program for, where it thinks it can take him. More it's how much money can they give him. But I would agree, like if you come on a visit and all of a sudden like we mesh really well and we get along and we just kind of bounce off of each other, and like you're telling me what your goals are and that you want to work and that this is where you want to be, like that tells me that you're bought into it and you're willing to buy into it. I think buy-in is a big one, and an athlete or a coach being able to see that an athlete is willing to buy into what's going on is a big thing. Like yes, you're going to come to college and it's going to be different than what you did in high school. Yeah. If you wanted to do what you did in high school, you probably should have stayed there. But I think someone who I can tell is willing to come into a different program and adapt to that program, adapt to the different is a huge green flag, and definitely like that's someone I want to work with. Yeah. Someone I know is willing to learn and willing to be coached. That's someone I want on my team.
Be coachable.
It's pretty simple. Like,
I'll tell you an expression that I heard. I was doing a project in college. It was a presentation, but it was a practice presentation. And this guy had driven in from another city about an hour and a half away. He'd driven in just to kind of assess the project. Yeah. So we did our presentation. It was 5 of us. We did it, and so now we're standing there waiting for questions. And the guy asked a question, and all 5 of us, it was kind of like a critical question, and all of us kind of got defensive. And we were like, oh, well, it's because, that's not what we meant, and, we did this, and he kind of gave some feedback about that, and then he said, stop, everyone stop talking. And we're all just like, what happened? And he said, look, I'm giving you my time. I do not have to be here, okay? I do not have to be here. This is my time because I want you to succeed. And he's like, first off, because I asked a question, say thank you. Thank me for my time, right? Thank me for doing this stuff because I don't have to do this. And it was so important to me realizing like I was so defensive. A lot of times you get questions and all this, you get defensive about, trying to explain yourself or over-explain yourself. In reality, like people want to help. People want you to succeed. Let people help you, right? I kind of don't know where I was starting to go. I had another direction I was going to go with that, but that's very important. Like, if you're ever doing a presentation or something, someone asks you a question, don't be defensive or try to tear down that question. Just say thank you.
I think it's being open to coaching, being open to different perspectives and go in different ways.
Yeah. All right, one of the last points I wanted to make is about you got these great marks. You're fast, you can run fast, you're going to be a perfect fit on the team. Yeah. We've got a scholarship ready for you.
Yeah.
Where your grades are at, maybe the grades, they're right on the edge of you being able to get into the university on your own or not. Or say it's already late past admission times.
Yeah.
Is being an athlete or having this recruitment process, can it help you get into the school?
Yeah, it definitely can. Once again, that's another thing that kind of varies a little bit by institution. Actually, probably varies significantly by institution. But at most places, you'll find that, especially if it's past the admissions date, like your coach can go through admin and kind of help get you into that process. There's ways that athletes can get accepted late, or into the admissions process late. As far as someone who's like teetering on the edge of like
the standards that the school needs,
the school standards, there's some pull there as well, but it's going to have to be someone who, like, if the coach sticks their neck out for you, they're going to have to believe like, hey, this kid's gonna be a good student.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they maybe they were a good student in high school, but they just struggled really bad with test taking. So their SAT or their ACT isn't high, but their GPA is reasonable. I would look at that and be like, he's a good student, she's a good student. They just need a little extra help, and I'd be willing to stick my neck out for it. I think walking that line of will the school accept you or not is that's when other factors get pulled in.
Yeah.
Are you a good kid? Like, are you someone who's going to benefit the department as a whole? Someone who like will be nice to see around, or someone who they're like, here comes Joey or Jenna, like here goes a problem.
Yeah.
So I think, when it comes to coaches or administration helping you get accepted, it's definitely, it's an option.
Yeah.
Like there's availability there, but you have to make sure you're doing the things on your part that will help encourage them to do that for you.
Yeah, that's huge. That's cool. Thanks for talking about that one.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, that's pretty much the high-level things for the time that we have today. So, any final closing comments or anything?
No, I would just encourage people to put themselves out there. I think be realistic with yourself about what level you're at. Like, if you were talking about your experience, if I could go back, I wish I would have given myself the chance to go like Division II. Like, I was a decent Division I athlete, probably a little above average, but I think I would have been like a high level D2 athlete. I was just scared of the stigma around going below Division I. So I think don't be afraid to go anywhere. Go with who can give you chances and who you think will mesh with well. But then also, I think being coachable was a big one. Being coachable through the process and being able to show that you're coachable is really important. College recruiting is, like I said at the beginning, it's so gray. There's no black and white. Like, it's so gray. Everyone operates a little differently. everything I've said today is the way I operate, right?
Yeah.
Like my
Yeah.
opinions and my views, and just because I say it doesn't mean it goes for someone else. So please keep that in mind,
Yeah.
but just know like everyone operates a little differently, and there's no set, hard, guaranteed way to go about this. You know, you just got to find the route that works best for you, and then ultimately find the spot that works best for you.
All right, that's it. I'm going to have a lot more of these kind of candid, relaxed podcasts where we just sit down and talk about a topic. Sometimes I'll have other coaches, individuals, maybe not. So be sure to check out the channel. Be sure to check out the website, and you'll find all more content like this. Give it a like, and I'll catch you on the next one. Awesome. Dude.
Easy. Dude.
You're the man.
Of course.
You're the man.